Crucian Kitchen Creations, and guess what today is? Today is Benyé Day. Today is the day to break out those bananas that you've been letting get overripe on purpose. Say you have some bananas that you totally forgot about, and now they're overripe, and you're like, what do I do with them? You're going to make a Crucian classic, a Benyé. We've been doing a lot of savory, so now's our time to get into sweet treats. They have always been eaten up to the last drop when I've shared them with people, but I always have to ask my grandma Ann to come down and touch me so I can always get it just right. Let's get started. So the ingredients you need, you're not going to touch the bananas until tomorrow. The ingredients you need are 3 cups of flour, you need lukewarm milk, and then you need yeast. The most important thing is make sure that your yeast is fresh. So we have in our bowl 1 cup of just regular whole milk, and it is lukewarm. Bowl is you're going to mix in your yeast. Now the recipe calls for 1 packet. I like to put in 1.5 packets to ensure a good rise and milk together. So now we're good. And now what we're going to do now is add the 3 cups of flour. Okay, that's about 1 pound of flour. We're definitely going to need a little bit more milk because this needs to be sort of like a gluey sort of paste. So let me get some more milk warmed up. Sometimes the recipes are spot on, and then sometimes you just need to adjust for whatever reason. But I know that I can't let my yeast rise overnight like this. So regardless of what the recipe says, I have to add more liquid, and I'm going to do that now. So I was right to add more liquid, and I still have a little bit more that I'm going to add. Who knows? It could be the humidity, because it's very hot in the Washington, D.C. area this summer. And you do what you have to do to get to where you know you have to be. And where I have to be in order for this to rise overnight is halfway there. I think that this last little bit of milk is going to do it. Okay. And see how it's already sort of stretching out, going. There we go. This is what you're looking for. It should look like old-fashioned glue that you would. That's it. You don't want to stir it or disturb it anymore. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to scrape all that's on the sides down below to make sure that I have everything. Cover it and let it rise. I like to cover it with plastic wrap. You can cover it with a clean dishcloth. You can do that as well. It's totally up to you, but make sure it's in a warm spot so it can rise overnight. And in the morning, we'll show you what to do with the rest of it. But this is how it starts. Put it away, go to sleep, see you in the morning. So last night, put up the first piece of ingredients to rise. So you have to start your beignets at night. But as you can see from the line, it does build up. So that means that this yeast is good, and we're gonna have some pretty good beignets in the turnout. So that's your first part. And now let's talk about what we're gonna put in. A piece on the end, and just squeeze it out of the sleeve. Don't sit trying to peel off the strips and, oh no, it's too soft, it's falling apart. Don't make it hard on yourself. Just squeeze it out, because it's all going to get mashed up anyway, okay? So right here, all I'm doing is I'm taking the skins and I'm scraping it out for any extra banana pulp. You want to get as much of the banana pulp out as you can get, and once you do, whether you scraped it out with a spoon or squeezed it out or what have you, put it in a small bowl and just mash it with a fork. It doesn't take much more than that, and it's easy to do. Okay, so we have everything laid out to make our beignets. So we know about what we did last night. That is the flour and yeast mixture with the warm milk. We are also going to add 3 more cups of flour to this. Over here, cinnamon or ground clove. This recipe calls for mace, but again, if you don't have it, you mix nutmeg and a little allspice. I'll say a 3 to 1 ratio. And then this is hugely important, and that is your grated orange peel. The recipe calls for a teaspoon, but I'm telling you, you're going to want to add more. And remember, when you are grating for the peel, you don't want the white pith in it. So even if you miss a little spot, that's okay, as long as you keep the white out, because the white makes it bitter. So this is the peel of one whole orange. And don't throw this away, because you can eat that. Okay? Is our four bananas, four overripe bananas mushed up. And what's so great about this, if you can zoom in, you can see the moisture that it brings, right? From being overripe. So that also helps. Then we have 1/3 of a cup of oil. And through trial and error, I learned that this needed a little bit more oil than the original recipe called for. Not saying that Miss McKay was wrong, but you know, this is our kitchen, so we do how we do. Okay, the first step is to add your banana mixture to the yeast and flour mixture from the night before. Stir it together. Yes, I'm using a fork. Sometimes just a good old-fashioned fork is the best way to get it in. You notice how I mashed it. I left a few small chunks, but not a lot. Well, actually, we're gonna add our oil. So that is our 1/3 of a cup of oil. Mix that. We'll do it there. My hands are clean. Always make sure your hands are clean. Add my sugar. I'm gonna go ahead and add my spices because, and that's a teaspoon of salt is also in there. I'll give you the full list at the end. And now I'm going to sift. Sifting makes a huge difference to the product and the texture of your final product, but also it helps to distribute the spices and sugar evenly. Adding my orange peel and a few little things that got left off. So now I'm going to change spoons. All is my secret ingredient because vanilla is not a part of the original recipe. And the mixing part, there's going to be a point in time when you're mixing and you're going to say, I need more liquid. No, you don't. No, you do not. You got to use the elbow grease. So I'm just fast forwarding so that you can see how the dough eventually evolves. It will all come together. It just takes elbow grease. You really got to dig under, scrape on the sides so you can pull it all together. Now let's suppose you get to the point where you're just like, Nisa, I need more liquid. Don't add milk or water. Take that saved orange from when we grated the orange peel and just squeeze a little bit of juice out, and that'll help you along. See that? See how it plops? See how when it plops, it stretches, it doesn't just go straight down. That's what you're looking for. Oil is heating up. I don't want this to dry out, so I'm gonna cover it with some plastic or aluminum foil or whatever you have to stay moist, and then I show you how we drop them in. So while the oil is heating up, because remember you want it to heat up slowly, let's just talk about the origin of beignet. When I make this, and I'll post pictures on Instagram, you know, I'll have a lot of friends, especially those from, let's say, New Orleans, love to try to correct me. They say, oh no, you spelled it wrong. And then I'll get the ones that say, that's not a real beignet. A real beignet looks like this and it's covered in sugar. Some really interesting modern takes on the beignet recipe and cooking process. And I have to say, it's just not for me. In my opinion, part of what we do in the modern Crucian kitchen is we do look for innovative ways to make life work. We do look for ways to use substitutes for things that are part of the traditional recipe but may not be readily easily available these days. But what we try not to do is add a whole bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with the original recipe. I've never had a beignet in my life, you know, from St. Croix that wasn't, you know, fried and yeast. I saw a recipe for baked ones where you cut them into like little biscuits. I don't know about that. So remember, our goal is to try to stay close as possible to authentic flavor. Changing things where they may need to be changed or updated for modern taste buds or just modern schedules. We have to do our best to try to stick as closely as we can to the original recipes if we are going to preserve the culture. You don't preserve culture by creating new things and passing them off as the original dessert. You can't do that. You have to show the original process first, the original ingredients. And then if you want to jazz it up, you explain that. But you've got to give people the original flavors and versions first. So how did we come about making beignets, which is absolutely a French dish? Don't forget, from the first few videos, 7 flags. The French were there for a long time. Of course, we know about the migrants from St. Bart's of French descent who moved primarily to St. Thomas. We know that we've got the French flavor connection in there through not only our colonial roots, but from the evolution of the people of the Virgin Islands.
And the other more practical part of the history is that beignets were a way to not waste food, to use fruit that may be overripe but could still be good for cooking and for nutrition.
Okay, so just keep that in mind. Preserving the culture means preserving the culture, not rewriting the culture. Okay, so we are ready to start to fry beignets. Remember, I showed the people this. I have a few ways that I do that. The first way that I start, don't worry about that, is by frying a little bit of the beignet batter on a stick. Okay, and I just try to grab some up, and then I kind of roll it around, because remember, it's viscous, and I put it in there, and I just let it cook. You need the oil to be hot, but just like the theory with plantain, you can't. That was a good sign, because it was showing that it was sort of moving and floating. But just like with plantain, you can't put it in super hot oil and keep it on super hot. You got to oil that, heat up the oil slowly. And I'm liking what I'm seeing from this temperature. I'm liking what I'm seeing from this temperature. So I think I'm going to, oh yeah. So the way a lot of beignets are made nowadays is women use an ice cream scoop. They use an ice cream scoop, which gives you a perfect little sized ball. So I'm gonna do a couple of beignets in this sort of newer way to do it. I don't know when the ladies that cook started to use ice cream scoops, but they still do use it now. So we've got 4 beignets. Heat is on a 7. I've got, again, my huge cast iron but enameled Dutch oven. If you don't own one of these, please get yourself one. And you can see they're starting to brown up already, but that is no indication whatsoever that they are ready to go. With beignets, you want to keep them moving. You also have to be concerned about the insides. The way to do that, to help the beignet cook, is just to poke a few holes in them. Right there on the top part where it started to brown. Poke a hole or 2 in there. That's going to let in some of the heat.
So as you look up close on a beignet, pay attention to that crust. That crust is dark because it is the sugar as well as the banana that has become caramelized, crispy, and delicious on the outside. So I'm speeding up this part of the video just for sake of time. I'm showing you how to do the larger size or traditional size beignets. My grandmother, Anne Maria, was known for making the best beignets on island. In fact, people still talk about it even though she's gone. So I tried my best to replicate how she might have done it using the tools she would have had. I take a large scoop out with a large spoon, and I lay it in there and sort of pull it lengthwise, if you will, until it's no longer in the spoon, and you've got this larger chunk of donut batter in there. It may take up on its own shape, and it may fry with cute little crispy parts on the edges, but you are still doing the same thing. You're rotating within the oil. You are checking to make sure that the outside doesn't burn, and making sure that the inside is cooked thoroughly.
This is looking really good. These are the larger ones cooking, and they are shaping up very nicely. And I don't have a thermometer to give you a temperature right now. But you know who didn't have a temperature thermometer for cooking? My grandmother. And yet she somehow was able to get up at the crack of dawn on a daily basis and sell these beignets that would go like hot. That bubbled up side, raw side we saw a minute ago, that's good. Flip them over, let them continue to cook. Use your stick to go in, to test, go to the side. These, just looking at the color underneath, need a little bit more time to catch up, but it's at a perfect heat, so letting them stay fried. So this is it. This is our finished pan of beignets. Let's go over what we did. These little small ones here, these are the ones used or formed using an ice cream scoop. Now they are dark. Doesn't mean anything is wrong with them. It just means they're extra caramelized in the outside. And listen to the crunch. Oh, looking fine. Perfectly good beignet. So with that, everyone, we did it. We tackled beignet day like the champs that we are, okay? And I know the first time I had to make them, I was kind of like, oh gosh, I hope I don't screw these up. But as you can see, it's not hard. A bit of time. You do have to start the night before, and you really have to start days or a week before so that you can ensure that you have overripened bananas. But when you do have those overripe bananas and you've got a packet of yeast and some flour, because I know you'll already have all your spices, you can whip together a treat that I guarantee you your kids would love. We talked about, well, anyone really, whenever I make these for like a work potluck type of thing, oh, it's gone. A few people will eat them, but I doubt they'll all be gone. They are always gone. They are always gone. And kids love these, especially too, as we were talking the other day about if you are raising a Crucian child, a Tomian child, a St. Jonian child here in the States for whatever reason, because you know we all have to be in the States for one reason or another in our lives and for our livelihood. But if you have that child there and you want to introduce them to a piece of our culture, this is an excellent way to do it. They can help. They can mash up the bananas. They can monitor the bananas. Mommy, the bananas are almost dark enough, you know. Make it fun. Get them involved. And again, once they taste it, it's a done deal, okay? I don't know what else to say except this is what I do with my overripe bananas. I used to do banana bread, but now if I have the time and the yeast, I will make beignets. Authentically Crucian, authentic Virgin Islands recipe. You can't miss. Thanks again for tuning in to the Crucian Kitchen Creations channel. See you next time.